What's up, good people? My name is AJ, and you are watching Straight Talks. I got a question in the comments to one of my other videos about the licenses that are required to operate as a financial advisor here in the United States. I thought it was a good one, so I'm going to talk about all that here. And if you have any other questions that you'd like to hear me talk about or you'd like to get an answer to, leave those questions in the comments down below to this video. I read through all of them, and most likely I'll respond back to you with another video. I thought this one was a good question. It'll be helpful for people who might want to get into the financial advising industry in the future. I'm not going to do a step-by-step guide, but go over all the licenses that you'll need to get and a little bit on how you can go about getting those. Hopefully this video helps a handful of people out, and if it does, or if you're interested in the financial advising videos in general, I'll ask that you go ahead and like this one, subscribe to the channel. Both of those things help me out and I appreciate them. Now let's get into this one. The primary pair of FINRA licenses that you are going to need to get to be a financial advisor and to give financial advice and recommendations in the United States are the Series 7 and Series 66. I'm going to talk about both of those here in a little more depth and also a couple other potential alternatives to those, but I need to start with the fact that getting the Series 7 now is a little bit easier than it used to be through something called the SIE exam. Back when I took the Series 7, and for most of the Series 7's existence, you had to be sponsored by an employing company to take the Series 7 exam, which gives you that license that you need to be able to provide investment recommendations to clients. But most firms hiring for a financial advice related role, and certainly all firms hiring for any financial advisor position, are going to want that candidate or job seeker to have the Series 7 license. Someone made a really good point in a comment to another one of my videos, which was just that this is really a catch-22 and that it's really difficult for people that are in a different industry and trying to break into the financial advising industry, because most employers want to see them have the Series 7, but you can't get the Series 7 unless you're already employed somewhere and that employer sponsors you to take the test. Now, FINRA was totally aware of this conundrum that a lot of people face, and they didn't want to disincentivize new people from joining the financial advice industry, so what they did was introduce the SIE exam. I didn't take the SIE exam myself, but from what I understand, it really is most of the Series 7. I think it includes like 70% of the testable content from the Series 7, and the exam is more than half as long, not as long as the old Series 7, but it's a pretty substantial exam, and if you passed the old 7, you would have been able to pass the SIE. If you passed the SIE now, I think you probably would have been able to pass the old 7. The big difference here, though, and the big advantage to you if you are looking to get into the industry out of college or from a different sector, is that you don't have to have a company sponsor. You can just sign up and take the SIE exam. It provides a much better entryway so that once you have this, you can start telling the employers that you might want to work for, hey, I already got the SIE exam, I'm eligible to sit for the 7, and then they know that they can hire you in and you just pass the SAE, so you know most of the material that's going to be on the 7 anyway, so then they can't actually sponsor you so that you still take that 7 to pass it, which gives you the license that you need. Then once you have the Series 7, the next step to go is for the Series 66. It's kind of annoying to do this in two parts, and the big distinction here, I believe, is that the Series 7 is like a federal license or gives you federal authorization to provide investment recommendations. The Series 66 covers more of the state-specific topics, and it is considered the state license to give recommendations in the various states. Those might not be the perfectly right technical differences between the two, but basically, for most financial advising roles, you're going to have to do both of them either way. The Series 66, I feel like the content's a little bit easier than the Series 7, but it does have a higher failure rate than the Series 7, so more people end up failing the 66. Again, most of the content on the Series 66 exam I thought was easier than that on the Series 7 exam. Aside from the blue sky laws, those are more like legal differences and terminologies that just didn't make a lot of sense to me. But the big issue most people run in with, at least from what you hear, is that they've already passed the 7, and they know that the 66 is a shorter test, and they hear that it's a much easier test, so they just spend a lot less time studying. They underprepare and ultimately end up failing the 66, so don't let that be you. I think that in most cases, the next step for folks in the financial advising industry is to get the insurance licenses. These licenses will allow you to sell insurance in different states, so whether you're doing like health insurance, life insurance, disability insurance, whatever, you're going to need to get these done. And in some cases, here's an important point to note, in some states, there are multiple exams that you have to get just to be able to sell one type of product. The terminology here is different by state to state, so you're going to have to look at your own state Department of Insurance to figure out what exams you need to sit for to get that license to sell insurance in your state. In the state that I work in and operate in, I had to get one license that accompanied most insurance policies, and then I had to take a second test, so there were 2 total exams to get licensed for just insurance. That second test covered types of insurance policies that could hold a cash value, and since that cash value usually gets invested in insurance policies, there's a separate type of exam that you have to pass to be able to do it. If you're working as like a trust officer or at a fee-only practice or something like that where you're definitely never going to deal with insurance products anyway, you're not going to have to worry about either of these. If you do have to worry about them, which I think most advisors do, they're pretty easy tests. They're really easy tests. I mean, you could study for a week and pass probably both of them, if not at least one of them. So don't sweat it too much. Just put in the hours that you need to do to be able to pass them and get it done. Finally, my understanding for people who are going into investment related roles where they will make investment decisions, but not necessarily sell products or give financial recommendations to clients, there is an alternative. At a firm that I interned for in 2015, they were actually considering just having me take this one exam rather than the 3 or 4 that I just mentioned if I was going to start with them full time. I know it still gets utilized throughout the industry today. It's not as common as the 7 and 66, but it's worth mentioning here just in case you end up in one of those roles where you're going to need this exam. And that one is the Series 65. I believe it covers like an IAR, Investment Advisor Representative. Could be wrong there, but basically it does similar things that the 7 and 66 would allow you to do. If you're just making more recommendations as like an investment advisor, you know, maybe managing a portfolio, kind of doing a hands-off model at picking equities or stocks or this or that. For whatever reason, my perception of the types of roles that need the 65 rather than the 7 and 66 is that they're more hands-off and investment focused. I never took that exam. I've heard that that one is easier still. Don't just take my word for it. If you're actually going to do the Series 65 in the United States, learn a little bit more about it yourself before you just say, oh, you know, AJ said it was easy on Straight Talk's YouTube, and I'm just going to go in and sit down for the thing and then fail it and it'd be my fault. Do your due diligence, but I have heard that it's a lesser exam than like the Series 66 is, which is also a little bit easier than the Series 7 in my opinion. All of these you should be able to pass in like 2 to 3 months at most if you're studying 2 or 3 hours a night. They're nowhere near as difficult as what I would consider to be like the more advanced examinations you can do in the United States or elsewhere in the globe, which would be like the CFA or CFP in the financial advising industry. All these licensing exams are going to be much easier and much more straightforward than those, so that's a good thing, but they're not simple, so don't just write them off. I have worked with a lot of people who have failed these exams in the past because they just thought they were going to be super easy and they'd breeze through them, and they didn't prepare well enough and they didn't score the 72% they need to pass most of these. If you have questions on any of these exams or kind of how my process through them went, go ahead and feel free to leave those questions in the comments down below to this video. I read them all. I will reply to most of them, and we can kind of have the conversation about some of the differences if you're still curious. So as always, thanks for watching.